Hey everyone, today's topic on our high performing leadership series and engaging your employees is around developing your high potentials. So if you have ever encountered the challenge of, someone leaving your organization, for example, one of your leaders, and being caught flat-footed by not having someone else that can step in to assume their responsibilities and just to carry things forward and up, then you're definitely missing out on some tools you can use to make sure that you're building a strong leadership bench. I'm going to share with you 5 tips or strategies for developing employees in your organization that have potential, what we term as your high potentials in the organization. And sometimes we need to define what that is. And so the first strategy is really just to identify and define. Hey Tessa, good to see you. What we need to do is identify and define what the high potential is. And so generally, someone that's high potential is someone that could rise, 1 or 2 or even more levels within your organization. It's not always leveling up. Sometimes it could be lateral as well, but that's the general aspect of it. And when you identify a high potential, which is really kind of the first step, I look at three areas, and I'm going to share with you a model here. Share my screen with you. Okay. So there's these 3, it's like a 3-legged stool, okay, what I call the 3 A's of career potential. There's aptitude, aspiration, and attitude. And without any one of these 3 things, it kind of falls down, right? Like a stool with just 2 legs, right? So it's someone that has a blending of all 3 of these. So one is, do they have the basic wiring and characteristics, the skill set, right? Which is your aptitude. Do they have that to do the job? They might not have it all the skills today or knowledge or experience, but could they acquire that if they were put in that role, or if they were given certain opportunities to develop, would they be able to do it? So that's like the first thing. The second thing is the aspiration. Do they even have a desire to move into a leadership role? Because if they don't, then that's kind of a non-starter, right? You're going to put someone in that role that really doesn't, their heart's not in it. And it's going to potentially have negative ripple effects. Now, there are times where you give someone a nudge to put them in a role that maybe they don't see themselves as being qualified for, or that they can do, but you've seen their abilities and you believe in them, right? And there's certainly a balance there of giving someone a nudge versus just, plainly just putting someone in a role that they really don't want. For whatever reason, they don't want it. The third one is attitude, and that is, how engaged and committed are they about this? Are they going to be a positive influence or not, right? Are they someone that can engage others? Can they build, that followership, if you will? So these are just briefly kind of a 3-legged stool for potential. The second strategy is to identify possible roles that they could fit into. So if you're in a decent sized organization, what are some roles that they might fit into based on their current skills, based on their natural strengths or talents, based on what their interests are, okay? And what are some potential roles, and identify. This is part of like the succession planning part of things, And you're being very strategic in this sense by beginning with the end in mind. So identifying kind of where might they end up. So you might see they have a lot of potential. Great, that's kind of vague, but it's even better if you kind of have a target of where they might land, because that's going to inform the third strategy, which is to develop them in that direction, have targeted development opportunities. One of the things I did in my last organization was help to create a high potential development program. It was a 9-month program. It was called Building on Strengths, what we called it, the BOSS program. And many other organizations have similar types of programs, but you have a group of individuals that are seen as, for example, potential for the next level or around a certain competency that needs to be developed. And you bring them together as a cohort and have a focused program that can include individual coaching, group coaching, training, and some type of what we call an action learning assignment, where they're working on a challenge together, a problem, an organization-wide challenge together, and they need to address that. And an opportunity where they get more visibility. They present to the senior leadership team. So these are some opportunities for them to showcase what they can do, and it's opportunity for your senior leaders, or if you're a business owner, for you to get more visibility into what happens when they're tested. So, and there's a lot of ways. So you could have a program like that, kind of a formal program like that, or you could just have like just targeted opportunities like a job rotation, right? So that they get exposure to another part of the business and experience in a whole nother function of the business, right? Or swapping two individuals, right? Again, to diversify. You might give them some type of stretch assignment, right? A little something extra that they do to see how they handle that. There's a number of things. Maybe it's encouraging them to serve on a board of directors for a nonprofit so that they can get some of those higher functioning leadership skills that they can't necessarily get, or are less likely to get in their current position. There's a lot of things you can do to groom people. I'll share with you another example here as well. Give me one moment here. Oops, that's not it. Give me a second here. All right. Here we go. Okay. So, these are some creative avenues for developing employees, right? They could be shadowing someone, right? I mentioned the volunteering. It can be, heading up some type of volunteer initiative within the organization or outside the organization. Mentoring, assigning them a mentor, right? These are all things. Now, we can do these things with, we want to be developing all of our employees, not just a select group, but when you are trying to prepare your organization for the future, there's some key levers that you can focus on, right? Like Archimedes, it says, give me a lever long enough and I can, move the world. Well, this is a similar principle, is given that you have limited resources, sometimes you have to prioritize. We're going to focus certain types of development opportunities, right? And so I'm just scrolling through here. These are some different ones that I've compiled here, and some of them are, don't cost you anything, right? A lot of these actually don't cost extra, budget dollars per se, but they're ways that you can encourage them to develop, right? So something to keep in mind. The third strategy is to really, and really key, is to let them know that they're high potential. And you'll find this vigorously debated within organizations about whether it's a good thing to tell someone that they're considered high potential versus keeping it a secret, right? So one of the arguments against telling someone they're high potential is that they'll have these expectations that they're going to be slotted for a certain role, and then for whatever reason it doesn't happen, then they're going to be upset and then they're going to leave. Right? That's kind of one of the arguments against it. But the other thing is, in my mind, and the reason for telling them, and my thinking's evolved over the years, is that I've seen so many talented employees leave because they didn't even realize that they were valued in that way, that they were seen in that light in the organization. And so you don't want to lose your good people. And if you can frame it up proactively and let them know that, hey, it's organic, just because they're potential today, if they don't maintain the same level of performance or the same attitude or this or that, or the needs change, then it's organic. It's not written in stone that that's how they're going to remain. And it lets people know, if you knew you were valued, wouldn't you work that much harder? Like, don't you feel obligated in some sense to live up to that? So that's my bias, but again, that will be vigorously debated by people in my field or leaders in organizations. So at least think about having that conversation. The fourth strategy is to keep them challenged and learning, and I kind of delved into that already around the programs. The key aspect of having a cohort program or stretch assignments or rotations is to keep them challenged. I just had a coaching conversation with a VP of a large Fortune 500 company this morning, who has been in the role for about 15 years and is she didn't say she was bored, but that's basically where she's at. She's like, I'm looking for something new or to be tested, right? I'm hungry for something new. And that's going to be the case for many of your high potential employees. They're high performing, they're ambitious, they're competitive in many cases, and they're hungry, right? So you need to feed them with additional challenges and some novelty in areas that have some substance, right? Not just giving, silly assignments and things of that nature, but, meaningful things that will help them, and help the company. And just from a learning perspective, right? So with that BOSS program we put together, when we originally put that together, the emphasis was on their development, not on the outcome in terms of the project that they took on, right? It was more about who would emerge as a leader among the group. Like, we didn't appoint one, we kept some things vague, right? What type of strengths would they bring to bear during this project? What roles would they settle into? So it's kind of an observation type of laboratory, if you will, right? And they were aware of that. They were aware of that. All right, the fifth challenge, or strategy, I should say, not challenge, is making the commitment and having accountability. So once your organization identifies high potentials, my belief is it's no longer that individual line manager's responsibility for that employee. Sure, it's still their responsibility to make sure that they develop and grow and get groomed. But once they're identified by the organization as high potential, what I've seen work best is where the entire senior leadership team takes ownership of that pool of employees to ensure there's opportunities. Because maybe there's not a development opportunity within that one silo that individual works in. Maybe it's somewhere else in the organization. So you can have those conversations there, and you take collective responsibility for developing your bench, because it's really about the future of the organization, not the future of that one department. Does that make sense? And sometimes it takes some training to get these senior leaders in that mindset of, even though they might take a hit, for example, by giving up one of their people in their own department, for the greater good of the organization, it's got a larger benefit, and they can get credit for that, right? For being, a team player, and, whatever, for being someone that's able to provide the organization these fantastically talented future leaders, right? That has a sense of status and a sense of law of reciprocity as well, right? You contribute this now, and hopefully you can bring some other people into their organization that will, provide some fresh eyes and help, stretch them in new ways too. So those are my five tips for you. So identify who is high potential and define that for your organization, who's considered high potential. Identify possible roles for these individuals so you can be more targeted on what development they need. Maybe they need more visibility, maybe they need greater empathy, maybe they need to be more strategic. Maybe it's about building a larger network, whatever it may be, but you can be more strategic about it and identify or create programs or opportunities for them to develop those skills. Let them know that your organization feels they have a lot of potential. Let them know that. Keep them challenged and learning, and make that commitment at the highest level. The entire leadership team is responsible. So those are my strategies. Thank you for watching. I'll be on next Tuesday at 5, and we'll have the next installment of the Engaging Your Employees series. And then I also invite you on Fridays. We have Q&A on Fridays. It's a career and leadership question free for all. So join in Fridays at noon Pacific time. And I'm on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, all live at noon on Fridays. So join in, and hope to see you soon. Bye.